Welcome back, ladies and gents. Today we're going to explain the anime series called Rocker, Braves of the Six Flowers. A mysterious man named Ardlet came to Vienna to prove himself in front of the goddess of fate in order to become a brave. He interrupted the semi-final match between two warriors in the holy tournament that chooses braves, proclaiming to be the strongest man in the world. The royal guards tried to stop Ardlet, but he took them out. Afterwards, he fought two warriors and incapacitated them both before being captured by more guards and thrown into jail. While in jail, a maid sneaked inside to meet Ardlet. She was impressed by his fight and asked him about his fighting style, philosophy, and his goal, to become one of the six flowers of the brave. Ardlet replied that he believed he'd become a brave, one of the six chosen warriors to fight the demon god, and that he wishes to fight alongside Princess Nashatania if she were to be chosen as a brave. He's then moved to an isolated prison cell in a pit. For many days and nights, Ardlet remained in the dark pit with barely any food or water. Some weeks later, the Braves were chosen and Ardlet received the crest of the six flowers on his right hand. The maid arrived, revealed to be the princess much to Ardlet's surprise, and rescued him from his cell. Nashatania showed him her own crest just below her collarbone on her chest. She freed him from his cell at the expense of her own soldiers, trapping them in the same pit that they had thrown Ardlet in. They both fled from Vienna and began heading west on horseback towards the land of the Howling Demons to meet the other Braves and defeat the demon god. For several days, Ardlet and Nashatania got to know each other through talk and play, though there was a small instance in when Nashatania got too serious in her play and nearly skewered him with her swords. Upon rebuking her, Ardlet found out about her mischievous nature and she pretended to be saddened and scared of his anger towards her. He was also able to see how her abilities worked and her free-spiritedness, which exasperated him. Nonetheless, they began to grow closer, but when a village in their path was attacked by Kyoma, Ardlet and Nashatania rushed to their defense and were able to fight together briefly. However, as they were escorting villagers away, Ardlet learned of a single girl who had stayed behind. Nashatania implored Ardlet that their mission to defeat the demon god was more important than helping one girl and being possibly killed by a Kyoma before then. Unable to do so, Ardlet went on ahead of her, leaving Nashatania to defend the villagers against any remaining Kyoma. Upon reaching the village, Ardlet was surprised to find a number of Kyoma corpses and a ball of iron as the only evidence. Then, he found a girl with white hair in black clothing, helping a dog and its young pup, setting them free. Framey tells Ardlet to leave her alone, stating that she must fight the margin by herself. However, Ardlet chases her until she's forced to travel together with him. He sends a message to Nashatania with his horse, telling her he found another of the six braves and to continue towards the peninsula where the margin is without him. Ardlet and Framey eventually run into a fortress where soldiers explain to them about a barrier that should help the braves in a nearby temple. As Ardlet and Framey continue to travel, they're suddenly attacked by Nashatania and Goldov, with Nashatania warning Ardlet to stay away from Framey. As Framey and Nashatania fight from a distance, Goldov charges at the former. Ardlet tries to stop him, but Goldov pushes him aside. Trying to end the fight, Ardlet shouts to them all to stop and says that Framey is not their enemy, since she's also one of the Braves. Nashatania and Goldov are surprised and inform Ardlet that Framey is the brave killer. Framey doesn't deny it and confirms that she is indeed the killer. She then names some of her victims. She then says that Goldov and Nashatania are also her targets while aiming her gun at them. Ardlet asks if Leora was also her target, but Framey answers that she was, but that she didn't know what happened to her. Ardlet then asks her why she killed all the potential braves, and Framey replies that the margin could return if only weak warriors remain to be chosen as braves. Goldov and Nashatania are now convinced she is their enemy and are about to kill Framey when Ardlet blocks them. He refuses to believe that someone trying to revive the margin would be chosen as a brave and says that he'll side with Framey if he has to fight. Nashatania finally decides to agree with Ardlet and tells Goldov that they'll stop fighting. She then informs Framey that she still doesn't believe her and that she only trusts Ardlet. As the group head for Mora, they notice several flying Kyoma heading for the temple. The Braves rush to the temple but are blocked by a different group of Kyoma. As they battle, Nashatania instructs Ardlet to go ahead to the temple. When Ardlet reaches the temple, he notices an injured priestess. He turns to help her, but she tells him to hurry inside. Ardlet tries to open the door, but it doesn't open, so he blasts it open with some explosives. Immediately afterwards, two armored soldiers exit from the inside and attack Ardlet, who's surprised. Ardlet tries to ask the priestess what had happened, but she's actually a shape-shifting Kyoma who escapes. After defeating the soldiers, who turn out to be just suits of armor, Ardlet feels a cold sense of dread before entering the temple and notices mist appearing from the ground. Fearing someone had already activated the barrier, Ardlet then enters the activation chamber only to discover that his fear had come true when he notices the sword already in the pedestal. He looks around the room but doesn't find anyone else inside. Nashitania, Framey and Goldoff arrive, and Nashitania asks Ardlet why he activated the barrier. Ardlet insists it wasn't him and that someone else activated it and then disappeared. While the group tries to figure out what's happened, Goldoff decides to turn off the barrier and removes the sword, but Framey says that the fog's still there. Ardlet tries to turn it off by cutting his hand, dripping his blood on the pedestal and reciting, "Barrier, release!" but nothing changes. Nashitania then panics, grabbing the sword and attacking the pedestal, shouting, "Barrier, release!" and that she was the owner of the barrier while breaking the slab. Framey stops her, telling her that there's no point in panicking when they hear footsteps. Guillermo arrives and asks what had happened when she recognizes the members of the group except for Ardlet. Ardlet asks her who she is, and Guillermo introduces herself and announces that she was also chosen as a brave. Guillermo then decides that they should start killing Framey, who also prepares for a fight, but Ardlet and Nashitania stop them. Mora arrives, wondering what the group is arguing over when she realizes what Guillermo was about to start a fight. Mora then orders Guillermo to stop and tells the group that there's an outsider amongst them when she reveals that she'd been traveling with a man she met the day before, Hans, who's also a brave. Ardlet orders everyone to show their crests, and they realize that there are 7 of them. Mora tells the group the story of the Saint of the Single Flower, who split her power into 6 for each of the braves so that it was impossible for there to be more or less than 6 braves. Ardlet and Hans went outside to find an escape to the barrier, but unfortunately they went in circles. When they went back, they saw Framey cuffed and tied as the initial 7th brave and the prime suspect of the activation of the barrier. Mora then suggested to introduce themselves in order to gather more information about each other. During Framey's introduction, she revealed herself as a half-human, half-Kyorma entity born from a human father and a Kyorma mother. Ardlet then explains his side of the story, but Hans saw a flaw in it like those locked room mysteries, therefore making him the prime suspect. Ardlet, in his confusion and anxiety, took Framey as his hostage, poisoned her to keep her unconscious and escaped the temple, but Hans managed to throw a dagger at him, slowing him down. He then passed out because of the blood loss while escaping. While he was down, he remembered how he went to his master, Arthro Spiker, and begged to take him as his student. His first lesson was to smile in despair. As he regained his consciousness, he noticed that he had bandages and Framey patched him up. They both talked about their past, and as they opened up to each other, he then speculated that there might be an 8th brave who helped the 7th, and he needed to find that out to prove his innocence. Ardlet told Framey about his past, on how he was taught to fight and even learned science by Arthro Spiker, his master. He also talked about a lizard-like humanoid Kyorma who had 3 wings who went to their village when he was young. Framey then confirmed that it was the same Kyorma who convinced her mother to give birth to her. Framey then told her story that her mother had pretended to love her and then tried to kill her after Framey disappointed her, making her furious of her kind and wanting to kill the Margin out of revenge. They then parted ways and Framey headed back to the others. Inside the temple, the Braves devised a plan to capture and kill Ardlet. As they split into groups to search for Ardlet, he went to the temple where he was attacked by Hans. Ardlet was able to escape, but then engaged in a battle with Hans in the forest. Ardlet is trying to convince Hans somehow that he's not the 7th, but Hans still suspects him. As Ardlet tries to trick Hans, he didn't kill him when he had the chance to prove that he's not the imposter. Hans then told Ardlet that he's the 7th brave, slicing his throat open. Ardlet then realized that it was a hallucination, and Hans decided to believe in him as he saw his dying reaction, which would be different had he been an imposter. Meanwhile, Nashitania speculated that Hans might be the 7th brave and is asking Goldoff for help and to trust that Ardlet is innocent. Ardlet and Hans went back to the temple to find clues, but Guillermo was outside and decided that she was bored of waiting, so she would just kill everyone to see if they were the traitor, attacking both of them by summoning her Gyoma. Ardlet and Hans battled Guillermo, but her fiends would always regenerate, making them hard to incapacitate. Then they thought of incapacitating Guillermo to stop the fiends. It was a success, and they captured Guillermo. They asked her if she knew anything about the activation of the barrier, and she nodded no. Ardlet went to search for more clues and used the bomb that Framey gave to give a signal to her. Framey noticed and met each other. Ardlet hypothesized about a saint's involvement in the matter and their possible uses, but Framey rebuked them. Back at the temple, Hans told Mora and Guillermo the same thing, but Mora refused to take them. Meanwhile, Nashitania confirms with Goldoff if someone died by checking her crest. Ardlet told Framey his hypothesis about the 7th and then confessed he loves her, but it made her more doubtful, thinking that Ardlet is trying to deceive her. Hans told Mora and Kiamo the same hypothesis, which made Mora call for Nashitania and Goldov using her powers. She told them that Hans was severely injured by Ardlet, making Nashitania snap and furious to have trusted and defended him. Framey pursued the escaping Ardlet and made a signal to the others of their location. Mora caught up and the three engaged in a battle, but then Ardlet surrendered and convinced Mora about Framey's innocence so the others wouldn't suspect her if he dies. Mora tried to kill Ardlet, but Framey decided to believe Ardlet and stopped Mora. Ardlet and Framey then escaped, but were cornered by Nashitania and Goldov, who were also out to kill Ardlet because of Mora's lie. Ardlet and Framey were cornered by Mora, Nashitania and Goldov. Ardlet started running back to the temple to meet with Hans while Framey backed him up, but Mora and Goldov stopped Framey and Nashitania pursued and incapacitated Ardlet in the process. He felt the chills as Nashitania gave the final blow and blocked her weapon using his hands and kicked her to escape. Goldov followed him until they went back to the place where they fought the Kyormaz near the temple. As Goldov, Nashitania, Mora and the captured Framey got back together, Nashitania was shocked to see Kiamo with Hans alive and well, realizing Mora had lied about Ardlet injuring him. She then apologized to Ardlet for attacking him. Ardlet finally made a conclusion as to how the imposter might have done it. His theory involved the Sun State Leora being kidnapped and forced to raise the temperature for over a week. As soon as one of the Braves opened the temple, they killed her, dropping the temperature and causing the fog, and then a Kyorma ate her body to hide it. Hans was able to find the body to prove Ardlet was right in his theory, and leaving only one person as the possible seventh. Ardlet confirmed that Mora might have been the seventh Brave if his deductions were correct, but Kiamo rebuked his conclusion. She and Hans were able to find copies of the tablet and tools that might have been used for the real activation of the barrier. On the second tablet were instructions to reactivate the fog barrier, which was by removing the knife and shattered tablet, drip blood all over the stand, say the words and break the tablet. This made everyone think that the person who broke the tablet was the seventh Brave. Framey confirmed that it was Nashitania who did so, and everyone was surprised. By deduction, Ardlet also thought that the person who sent him to the temple was the one who planned everything from the very beginning, and it was her. As he confirmed it, she then surrendered and claimed that she really is the seventh Brave, and Goldov was shocked by the revelation. Nashitania told them she wanted to kill them all because she believed that humans and Kyormaz could live together in peace, but around 500,000 humans might die in the process. Ardlet then ordered everyone to kill her, but she escapes. He fainted due to the loss of blood. As he regains consciousness, Mora apologizes to him for thinking he was the seventh and trying to kill him. She also took care of his wounds. After resting, they all went outside to continue their travel to fight the Margin, but to their surprise, they meet Rolonia, Ardlet's childhood friend and the Saint of Blood, who apologized for being late because of the fog and claiming that she's one of the Braves, showing her crest. During the confusion, troops from Gwembire went to the temple to tell everyone that more than 1,000 Kyormaz were coming to the temple. They decided to stop trying to find out who was the seventh and started traveling to the Wailing Demon territory, asking the troops to reactivate the barrier after they left. So this is it for today's video. If you liked the video, give it a huge thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Farewell till next time.